I welcome everyone here to our WebNet meeting. My name is Natalie Cato, and I'm a member of the WebNet Steering Committee. Before we get started with today's presentation, I wanted to take care of a couple pieces of WebNet business. And the first is to let you know that the WebNet Steering Committee meets in August to figure out what topics to present in the next year. So if you have ideas of what you would like to hear about in the next academic year's meetings that we have, please send your suggestions to the WebNet list. And if you could get your ideas into the WebNet list before August, that would be really, really good. Okay, and the other piece of business is that there is a sign-up sheet that's going around, so if you could please put your name on there and your affiliation, that'd be great. So today's meeting is a joint venture between WebNet and the Web Access Group, and will address the issue of document accessibility and usability. Web Access was formed in 2005 as a grassroots group, and it was put together to explore and learn about ways to make websites accessible to everyone. It has since blossomed into a large cross-campus collaboration with members from multiple departments. Web Access now meets weekly to offer expert review and advice to developers of campus websites and web applications regarding accessibility. So to tell you a little bit more about the Web Access Group and to introduce you to today's speaker is Campus Assistive Technology Specialist Lucy Greco. Lucy works at the Disabled Students Program on campus and is a leading member of Web Access. So here's Lucy.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming to the document accessibility presentation. For me, I first of all want to thank the WebNet committee for allowing us to have this annual time in May where they've let us come for the past 3 years now to do a presentation on web accessibility and let us change the format a little bit from the past 2 years. We've done one of our clinics the past 2 years. This year we thought we'd change it and talk about something that was very time sensitive. We're looking at the document accessibility because of the great issue on campus right now of people putting things up on the web, be it your course reader if you're a faculty member, or your calendar of events, or anything along those lines. If you're using BSpace and you have content you want to put up on BSpace, for our visitors outside of Berkeley, that would be Sakai. You need to make those documents accessible. And this presentation hopefully will help you understand the beginnings of making it accessible, and we invite you to come to our Friday morning meetings if you want any more information, or help us set up other presentations in the future, which leads to me introducing our guest today, Sean Keegan from the High Tech Center at De Anza College. This is a high tech center sponsored by the junior college system, where their job is to help people provide the most accessible technology to students, and they have I'm very grateful that they've allowed Sean to come and speak to us today, because he is a very, very knowledgeable person when it comes to this particular area. How do you make your website content accessible? How is your documents that you present on the website presented so that not only your average high-tech savvy freshman student can read it, but so that, a grandmother reviewing the website for her son who's coming into class next year, or the disabled student who may have a visual impairment can read their assignments for tomorrow. All that is very important to us in the Web Access Group, and to the High Tech Center at De Anza, and to Berkeley, and in general, it's becoming very important. So first of all, before I let Sean take the stage, I want to recognize the Web Access people here in the room. We've grown from when I started to maybe 5 or 6 people 3 years ago to a large group, several of which are here today. So could you all please stand, people who attend Web Access on a regular basis? And I want to give them all a round of applause. Okay, so Sean, I am going to pass the stage over to you. And once again, I want to thank you on behalf of Berkeley, Web Access, and WebNet for taking time to present. I'd like to remind everybody that this will be podcast and videotaped, so please We've got a captioner as well, so please speak as loudly as possible, as clearly as possible, so the captioner can catch your questions if you have any questions. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you to the Web Access Group for inviting me here today. A little bit about us. My name is Sean Keegan. I'm from the High Tech Center Training Unit for the California Community Colleges. And a little bit about the High Tech Center Training Unit. It's a grant-funded program. It was put together about almost 20 years ago now. And it's provided through the California Community College Systems Office, as it's called now. And the intent is to provide training and support in the community college system in 3 areas. Web accessibility, which is mine, alternate media creation, such as the conversion of print-based materials into electronic formats, DAISY, audio, other formats, Word files, and the use of assistive computer technologies. So how a student with a disability would actually interact with the assistive technologies. And all of those get pulled together when we start about talking about the web, documents, and how students would interact with such content. So I'm going to be talking specifically about PDF documents today and integrating accessibility. I probably should have titled this something along the lines of "Don't Panic," but if I had done that, it might have led some people to believe that panic was involved, and it's really not a hard process. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we can do to improve document accessibility in general and specifically for PDFs. First off, talk a little bit about some definitions, some things we need to make clear with respect to what I'm going to be talking about with the different types of documents that are out there, specifically PDFs. I'm going to give you the easy method for creating documents, PDFs, that are accessible, fully functional, work for students, whether they're using assistive technology or not. And then I'm going to give you the less easy method, which requires a little bit more work, perhaps using either Adobe Acrobat tools or third-party tools, and talk a little bit about how assistive technologies work with PDF documents, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and just some ideas that people have collected over the last couple of years as they've been developing both the assistive technology side of the house as well as the PDF and document accessibility side of the house. And of course, there's always going to be some things to take home, some resources, okay? So if you have questions as we go through, please sing out. I would much rather have this as an interactive discussion as to me standing at a podium just lecturing. I did enough of that. All right, so some definitions. PDFs. In the world of PDF, I like to think of the following as the 3 flavors with respect to accessibility. Okay, so flavor number 1, image-only PDF. These are documents that are basically scanned images, completely inaccessible. Okay, they're pictures of text, they're pictures of content. There's no actual text information in there. And to get any use or value out of this PDF from both a access perspective as well as a usability perspective, in my opinion, you're going to need to use optical character recognition. So we take a document, we run it through a flatbed scanner, and then we need to go run additional software on it to go through and say, yes, that character looks like an A, that character looks like a B, that character looks like a C. Okay. The challenge with image-only PDFs is that because they're just a picture of content, you're going to require additional processing. And machines can simplify that process, but by no means do they completely make it, a fire and forget solution. Okay. At some level, someone's going to have to go back through and proof the document to make sure what the machine thought were the words on the page were actually the real words on the page. This gets much more difficult, particularly when you start dealing with things that are non-English text. Math, chemistry, the sciences. So image-only PDF, least accessible, that's the worst flavor. Second flavor is what's called searchable PDF. Now, searchable PDF is much more palatable. There's text content. So if you open up the PDF document, you can actually go in there and try and highlight it and copy and paste the text out of the document, okay, if the permissions so allow. So there's actual text in the document. The question then becomes, what's the reading order? Okay. So you may have a document that has 3 columns of text. It's truly text in there, but what's the reading order? If someone was actually to use assistive technology, if a student who's blind using their specific technology to read this document, just read it back to them, would it read back in a way that made sense? And so the problem comes that there's no document structure. There's nothing that organizes the information. So the last flavor, okay, and these are overgeneralizations, but the last flavor is what's called tagged PDF. And this contains an actual document structure. This contains basically information that says this content comes before that content. Okay, and you can mark up that information with semantically with headings, image descriptions, table information, so on. So, real quick question: anybody in here ever looked at a web page? Okay, good. Yeah, I've seen some heads go up and down. I'm just checking. It's after lunch. This is when people get a little cozy. So we've seen a web page. Behind the web page, what's running the show? What's the code behind a web page? HTML. Okay. The analogy here would be the PDF is what everyone sees. Okay. The tags are what's behind the scenes. Okay. So these are what PDF tags kind of look like. The tags basically allow for a control of the logical reading order, the logical document structure. And you can identify and specify heading information, so semantically mark up your content programmatically. Okay? So rather than it just looking like it's Arial 18-point font with a centered on the page, it actually means something semantically. You can also build in a lot more support for PDF forms with tags. You can add additional information that facilitates the process. So someone using specialized computer technology, these assistive technologies, okay, can actually interact and complete the form independently. We can also build in image descriptions. So we can add information in there, okay, such that when a student hits that actual image on the page, it will communicate some type of text description. Very similar. There's analogies to this to HTML all over the place, right? Most people are probably, okay, this makes sense. No big deal. So what we've got is the ability to create this content, an easy method and a less easy method, okay? Now, I'm going to focus on the easy method first, then we'll talk about the harder method in a little bit in a few minutes. To do this the easy way, okay, you can start with the following applications. Microsoft Office, 2000 or later. Okay, that includes Excel, PowerPoint, Publisher, all that stuff. Adobe Acrobat, not the free version of Reader, but Adobe Acrobat, 5, 6, 7, or 8. Just a quick note, if anyone's running Office 2007, you really want the 8.1 of Acrobat. Now, we've also found that with Office 2007, you can download that Save as PDF plugin. This is also going to generate these PDF tags. So by using either Office 2000 or later and Adobe Acrobat 5 or later, okay, you can generate a tagged PDF document. Or you can download that Save as PDF plugin. Other word processing applications that work pretty well, OpenOffice. OpenOffice alone will generate tagged PDFs. So that's kind of a nice feature. And they're building in some additional support for WordPerfect as well. Okay? So you're not related just to Office itself. Question, yeah?
Do you know if you use Acrobat's function to open a web page and produce a PDF, if that does the tagging for you based on the CSS or the structure of the HTML document that you're accessing?
So if you take, you open up a web page in a web browser and...
No, in Acrobat Pro,
right.
When you're talking about, there's a function where you...
to get the page.
Get page.
Yeah.
It just builds the PDF from that code. I'm unaware, I use that function, but I'm not sure whether it does the tagging.
Right. So the question is, if you're able to open up Acrobat and make sure I got this correct, get a URL, enter a URL, and basically create a PDF, essentially, of that web page itself. The last time I tried that, and I'll admit, this was back with 7, I was not getting tagged PDFs. I have not tried that with 8 lately. So I will have to try that with 8. Maybe we can try that. I've got a wireless connection. We can try it a little bit later on today. So with 7, I wasn't getting that. That's a good question. Let's play with that a little bit later. Sample workflow, pretty easy. Okay? Create your content. Most people are already doing that. All right? You can identify column header information for tables. These are things you can do in Word. You can identify your column table information. Okay? It's just a function in Word. You can use styles and formatting to semantically mark up your content. Okay? Heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, that sort of thing. And you can add text descriptions for images. All pretty simple things to do. You can do that in Word. What you end up doing is building in a foundation for access in the Word document that can then lend itself to the PDF. Okay? Now, I realize not everything's done in Word, but hold that thought. So, some basic things. This is kind of just a screenshot of one of those lovely little ribbons in Office 2007. And what it is, from left to right, there's a number of different styles that I've got showing here. And they're showing different, the A, the B, and the C, and how it looks a little bit different. And on the far left, I've got normal, no spacing, followed by heading 1, heading 2, title, subtitle, and subtle emphasis. Things to keep in mind when dealing with styles and formatting in Word, besides the fact that it can be an absolute nightmare. I will agree. You want to use the default heading information, either heading 1 or heading 2 or H1 or H2 from Word. A lot of people tend to go back into the styles area and redefine a new style, a new heading style. They call it either title or main page content or something of that nature. That's going to cause some problems. By leaving it as heading 1 or H1, H2, or H3, that's how you've named your style. That will facilitate the transformation such that the PDF that you get is actually functional with assistive technologies. Yes, question?
Are you saying that you could change the font or color but leave the name of that setting the same? Or?
So you'd leave the name as heading 1 or heading 2, okay, as opposed to changing the name of that style to main title page or main title element. Okay, because oftentimes departments will set up a set of styles that everyone's expected to use. Okay, the problem is when those transform over to PDF, they don't mean anything semantically. Okay, so using the basic built-in styles works really well for Word, or you can rename them as H1 or H2 or H3, kind of mirroring the HTML, the web page equivalents. Image descriptions. That's an easy one. Now, actually, what people include in that image description is a whole other game. And there's a lot of documentation already on the Web Access site that I would refer you to actually see what constitutes a good image description. But the functionality is built into Word. Okay? Or you can just select the image, open up the size, what's called size now in 2007, the size properties, and choose alt text and put it in. The information you type into this area is saved into the document such that when it gets transformed over into another format, it gets carried along. Okay. I'm not going to go into a long description, no pun intended, about what you should or shouldn't include in the alternate text. Like I said, there's a lot of information already on the Web Access site that I've seen. I think that's pretty good, and I'll just refer you back to there. So that's the easy method. You can do a lot of that work in Microsoft Word, okay, other Office applications. It builds the access into the PDF document, and it's fully functional, right? Now, you run into the problem where you don't have access to the original document itself, or the document was given to you in another format, okay? Say it's given to you as a PDF. And these PDF documents don't have any tags to them, but there's actual text. So a show of hands, how many people in the room are Mac users? Oh boy. So we've got about 55 or so people here. I'd say probably about a good 20, 25 people. You're not gonna like this next part. So as I said before, there's that easy method to create a Word document. Use Microsoft Word, use Adobe Acrobat, create your PDF. If you're using a Mac with all those same applications and you follow that workflow, you're not actually going to get a tagged PDF. What you're going to get is a searchable PDF. So under Mac, you go to File, and you want to print it, and you can save it as a PDF, right? Yep. Okay, so your head's going up and down. You're going to get a searchable PDF there, not tagged. I don't like it either. I would really like it if everyone got together in a small room and were not let out until they've hashed this issue out.
True with Office 2008?
That's what I've been, yep.
Just came out?
Yep, that's what I'm still waiting for my copy. I've spoken to a few people and they're saying it's still not functioning. I'm hoping that they're wrong. We're running some more tests right now, but we're not seeing any changes. You're going to get a searchable PDF. All is not lost, okay? It just requires a little bit of extra work to generate a tagged PDF. So let me tell you what's involved to generate the tagged PDF. In Adobe Acrobat, and I'm going to focus on Acrobat right now. There's a lot of other tools out there. I'm going to just focus on Acrobat right now. There's a function called Add Tags to Document. So in Adobe Acrobat, you can open up that PDF that's searchable, text-based, and run Add Tags to Document. Okay? And it will go through the PDF and look at the information and tag it accordingly. And it actually does a pretty good job now with version 8 because it'll go through and it'll say, look, this looks like it was a heading. Okay? So if you used your styles and formatting, even though it didn't create that tagged version, it will try to infer some semantic markup. You can go back through, add text descriptions to the images, check your logical reading order, add data tables. You can do all of this extra work in Adobe Acrobat. So ideally, it would have been done back in your Word or your other application, your word processing application. That information doesn't get retained. You can at least go ahead and do it in Adobe Acrobat. There's a big caveat. There is no undo. Okay? So if a mistake is made in that process, you're out of luck. Okay? A bit of a challenge. Question?
Could you begin the process again and go through the whole document reinstating all your...
You could. What I generally recommend is save and save often. So you could always go back. Yes, you could go back through and if you make a mistake or something doesn't work, you can go back through the document, fix everything. Absolutely. That's not the problem. My recommendation is, save often, and if something happens, it's a real simple process to go back and fix it. Now, that being said, most searchable PDFs that I've found, and I'll use the old, 75% of all statistics are made up on the spot. Most of the PDFs that I've encountered that come out of the Mac platform that are relatively vanilla, not a lot of style, the layout is fairly plain, fairly straightforward, maybe 2 columns if such a thing, okay? So pretty straightforward content, 1 or 2 columns at most. Running the add tags to document feature works really well. And there's very little, if any, post-processing you have to do to determine reading order information. The additional work is really identifying the image descriptions as well as marking up any additional data content. Okay? I'm going to give a couple of demos here in a few minutes. Okay? But real big, don't make a mistake. There's no undo. That usually catches people. They'll get through this entire document. They'll spend an hour working on a document, get to one thing, and hit the delete button, think, oh, that's okay, I'll just repeat it. Nope, doesn't come back. So really the big issue is determining reading order. Okay? So what we've got on the page right now, up on the screen, is basically 2 columns of text. And one of the challenges people have is that they throw assistive technology, these specialized technologies, at a PDF and say, does it read the content? Well, most of the time, if it's searchable text, yeah, it's going to read the content. If it's tagged, it's going to read it in a specific order. So what I have on the screen right now is 2 columns of text. And this actually happened at one point. Somebody said, I used some assistive technology and I ran it through, I processed the PDF and I listened to it and it spoke all the information on the page. I said, okay, great. And they said, yeah, but I'm having a real problem with a colleague of mine who happens to be blind, isn't able to access the information. So if you started in the bottom right corner of this slide, which talks about watch for, multiple columns, text boxes figured labeled as tables, okay, and went backwards, so it read that watch for information first, then followed that with the save the PDF as text accessible or plain text, then followed by review the zones on the PDF, followed by this will provide a text flow. The information's all there, but it doesn't necessarily make sense. It doesn't follow the reading order issue, okay? And in the example that I was working with the instructor, they had 3 columns on their page. The last names were in the first column, the first names were in the middle column, and phone numbers were in the third column. And already people are shaking their heads. Yep, you guessed it. Guess what it read first? read the last names first, did a great job there, then it read all the first names, then it read all the phone numbers, and the person said, I'm done. Doesn't work that easily. Reading order is really critical, okay? So there's a couple different ways to do it. The gold standard is to, use assistive technology on it. Give it a whirl, see what happens. You can use either Adobe's built-in read out loud feature, okay, or screen readers or other assistive technology devices. That's tedious. Doesn't work the best, okay, particularly for doing a large volume document processing. My recommendation is to do a kind of a quick and dirty assessment, make sure things are in the right plan, save the PDF as text accessible, okay, or plain text. This is going to provide information on how that content is going to be presented to the assistive technology. It comes out as a plain text file. And what you have to watch out for, you can look at these zones, what you have to watch out for are multiple column documents or multiple column areas. Did the content flow correctly? Okay. Are there any text boxes? Text boxes tend to float on a layer above the actual content stream. Okay. Are there text boxes in there? Are there any figures that get labeled as tables or vice versa? Because that information then gets reordered. Okay. So those are things that can be checked in the Adobe Acrobat file. So what I'm going to do, and this can go either way, either way, so I'm going to wing it. I've got a document here, PDF, about 26 pages long. I actually did this originally in InDesign. And InDesign will actually tag out your PDF. So if you're an InDesign user, good news. Life can be made simple. And if I wanted to check the reading order, besides running all the assistive technology, there's a big export button on that menu bar, or just below the menu bar in Acrobat. And under More Formats, the option is just text accessible. So rather than checking each single page of this PDF, I can run this process, save out my text file. Hopefully it processes. There we go. And the end result is basically just that text file with, you can visually scan what the reading order is going to be. Okay? This is a pretty simple process. So I can see all of the information as it comes up on the page. Okay? Pretty easy. Much better than looking at the document and trying to read it. All right? We can play with a couple other documents if you want to see what those look like. Actually, I did have one other document here. So I've got a 3-column document that I had played around with a little bit earlier. And 3 columns, nothing spectacular there, with some information at the bottom. Okay? Quick export just to kind of give you an idea what it ends up looking like with untagged. So I've got my PDF and save it out as text accessible. Things look okay early on. Okay, but what happens is as the document gets processed, I immediately jump to items to be reviewed, which is right in the middle of one of my paragraphs, one of my columns. Okay? So this is where you can go back through and tag the document so you can organize the information in such a way that it retains a logical document flow. This is going to require some degree of decision making on your part. Computers will try to go ahead, and Acrobat will go ahead and take a look at these 3 columns and say, well, this is how it should be organized. Okay? It's going to require someone to go back through and make sure that that logical flow is actually truly logical, according to what we see as opposed to what the computer sees. So those are things. So to watch out for those, the multiple columns, text boxes, and figures that maybe get labeled as other things. Now we can go back through in Acrobat and fix all this stuff up. Back in version, I believe it came out in 7, the touch-up reading order tool came along. It allows you to control text flow, organize the information by zoning the content. So you get to actually see it on the page, zone it, and set it as this is text, or this is a heading. Okay? You can specify if there's any captions or figures, a formula, if the information is a table or not, okay? Or if the content's background. Background basically takes content out of the document structure. Okay? So if you've got an image in there that's just eye candy, just a graphic that, conveys no meaningful information, Acrobat's going to keep wanting to say, hey, you need to provide a text description for this. You can zone it and say, no, it's background. It's an artifact. Okay? Now, some of that's probably going to change in the future, but for right now, that's where we're at. Using the touch-up reading order tool, you can go in, mark information, zone it, and set it as the appropriate field. So kind of going back to my, oh, come on, where'd you go? My PDF here, by turning on the touch-up reading order tool, now, first I have to add the tags. Ugh. 10% is not going to help anybody out there right now. Okay, let's make this a little bigger. I can go through, and it's going to try to do its best guess, but I can say, you know what, number 1, zone 1, that's a heading 1. Okay? And it's going to try and go ahead and mark the rest of this content. But I can say introduction. I simply draw a box around it and mark it as a heading 2. Okay? That's the process. Okay? Acrobat tries to do some of this for you, but to really get it to be accurate, it does require someone to go back and manually set some of this information. Now, that's how you can handle it in Adobe Acrobat. I'm going to leave that up there for right now. Changing the order. I'm going to owe you some money on that one. That was a wonderful segue. Using the Order tab. See me after. So the Order tab provides basically a page view of the content and the zones on the page. What you're able to see is how the information is arranged into groups. Okay? And you can reorganize this information. Here's where it gets exciting, because no one wants to be bored when they're doing this. The information that you see in the Order tab may or may not be accurate. Right, yeah, which is really not that helpful. So what I found is that when you run documents and you take a searchable text and you add tags to the document, Adobe does its best guess, okay, of how the information should be organized. That doesn't always mean that it's accurate. So it's going to be a flip between what the Order tab says and what the Tags tab says. Give you an example. So here I've got this PDF. Oh, by the way, if anybody's looking for a really solid reason to get a widescreen monitor, or at least 2 monitors, right here, this is it. Get that floating palette someplace else on your screen. It will drive you just nuts. So we've got this document. I added tags to it. The challenge is if I look at the Order tab, oops, okay, on the left side of the page, I can see each one of the different zones. Okay. That information may or may not be exactly what the assistive technology is going to read. So it's going to be kind of a bounce back and forth between what the order panel says versus what you get on an export through text accessible. Okay. Right now, that's just the way it is. I know there's some bugs in there, how the order panel is looking at the information versus how the tags look in the information. What I'll tell you is this. Assistive computer technologies, okay, they're looking at the information as it's organized in the tags panel. All right? And when you do this export and text accessible, that information's coming out of the tags area. Okay? So you can use both, but just be cautious. You'll probably have to be going back and forth between the text file. Let's go ahead and save this one out again. Okay, this one came out pretty good, but it still has some of the items to be reviewed right in the middle of my first column. Okay, so keep this in mind. Items to be reviewed is right under the marketing review. Okay, and actually here it's organized just right. I know why I was playing with this one earlier. I had it set. So it's a matter of just simply zoning this content, saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it all on the same page here. There we go. I can simply zone this region of text, mark it as text information. Okay, that's one way of doing it. That's to reorder it. Or I can come over here on the order panel itself and move this information around. 5 is going to be above 4 in this case. Okay, so just be wary. The accurate logical document information is going to come out of the tags panel. All right? The order panel can help kind of facilitate that process. Sometimes, though, you're going to get into a situation where you run the add tags to document, and it, for lack of a better word, it just kind of goes wonky. Okay? This is going to be a do-over. This is where, even though the machine's processed it in a certain way, you're going to need to start over again. Okay? Clear the page structure. That's something you can do in the touch-up reading order tool, and start rezoning the content. Needless to say, this gets tedious. This is not something that most people want to be doing. Okay? When you're dealing with complex layouts, and this isn't very complex, but this is actually something that that did happen when I was playing with some document content. It ran it through and said, oh, this comes first, this comes second, this comes third. And what we've got on the screen is a situation where the content in the middle of the page is being identified before the content in the top part of the page. Ideally, you're able to go back to your original document file, your original word processing file. Start from there and build your workflow there for the accessible PDF, as opposed to trying to retrofit it later. That's the ideal. If that doesn't work, well, then it does get a little bit tedious. Okay? As you're going through this, you're not affecting the way the PDF looks itself. All you're doing is manipulating the reading order of the information behind the scenes. Okay? So sometimes starting over does have to occur. You can add that alternate text. It's a real simple process. Really just it's a right mouse button click on the image itself and choose Edit Alternate Text. Pretty simple. Okay. And the Add Tags to Document feature in Acrobat will automatically identify those images in the page for you. So you can simply just go through, add alternate text, save your document, and everything's retained in the PDF itself. Okay. That's a pretty simple process. Now, what it comes down to on the consumption side of the house, the content creation side is pretty easy, relatively speaking, based on workflows. On content consumption, it starts to get into a little bit different area. How and why are we delivering the information in this file format? And how functional will it be with assistive computer technologies? How functional will it be for the students or staff interacting with the information? Properly done, documents that are created with all of the elements, headings, image descriptions, that sort of content, okay, work with the current assistive computer technologies. A student who's blind using a screen reader, they're able to interact and read the information in the PDF itself. It's perfectly functional, okay? The challenge is that not all of the assistive technologies out there, okay, even to the fact that some from last year, okay, do not always provide full access to the document organization or information, functional information. Okay, and there's issues with the PDF viewer applications. So there's a number of people who use the Mac in here. One of the features that's really nice on the Mac is something called Preview. Okay, if you don't have Adobe Acrobat installed, you can still open up a PDF document. Okay, that's what I'm talking about with a viewer application. On the Windows side of the house, you can use something like Reader. One of the challenges is that some of those viewing applications don't work well with assistive computer technologies. Okay, and provide an environment such that it becomes difficult for people to interact with the content. An example. Students using a screen reader. They come to a PDF document that's posted on the web page. Okay? Now, simply opening up that PDF document is going to require that they use Adobe Reader on the Windows side of the house, for example. Just because they have Reader and the document itself is accessible does not mean that it's going to be easy for the student or really functional, depending on their technology, to interact with that content. So the content's all there, but the application itself has got problems. Okay? Now things have gotten better. One of the jokes is generally around the lines when people say, I'm having problems accessing PDF documents. I know the content was created in an accessible fashion, but it's just not working. And one of the first things we say is, okay, great. When was the last time you upgraded Reader? And that's the unfortunate side of it. Student now needs to, or faculty member or staff member now needs to take, okay, wait a minute, I got to go download a 20+ megabyte file just to read some basic content. Okay? It really starts to impact usability there. So something that should take only 2 to 3 minutes is now going to take probably upwards of an hour. My personal perspective, and this is my opinion, and there's others that share that opinion, which scares me a little bit because I know who they are. When possible, content should originate as an accessible web page. That's what you start with, accessible web page. If you want to go beyond that and add a PDF, that's fine. Okay, create an accessible PDF version. Now, some have argued, well, you know what, I've got an accessible web page. I don't need to create the PDF as an accessible fashion. That's where I tend to disagree, because there are assumptions built into that, okay, that may not always hold up. That PDF may be used in a variety of formats and distribution methods, okay? So my personal opinion is make it accessible regardless. There are going to be exceptions, though. Any ideas? I gave a couple early on. Any ideas what exceptions might be?
On our site, we have a lot of forms.
A lot of forms?
There's a whole volume.
Sorry. I can talk about forms and show you. Yeah, sorry. Forms you can do accessible. Sorry. No luck there. What I was actually really interested in for a while was the IRS tax forms. They've actually built a lot of accessibility into the IRS tax forms and make those really functional with assistive technology, which I guess on one hand, it's very good that they did it, but I'm sure there's a lot of individuals who are kind of like, you know, wouldn't have been easier to say that, oh, I couldn't fill out the form, so I don't have to pay my taxes. There are going to be exceptions. How about music? Music might be an issue, okay? Any others? Come on, I know it's almost 1. It's that nap time hour. Math formulas. Math formulas are a little interesting because in the web environment, you can actually build a lot of accessibility with MathML. So on the web side, you can have very accessible web page content. The document, other documents, PDF for instance, may not be quite as functional. And so, yeah, in that case, you could have math, you could have an accessible web page and an inaccessible PDF. Don't bet on that one long term though, because they've already got a technical solution in the works. But math equations comes up quite a bit. Music, math. How about CAD drawings? Okay. Plans for a house, building architectural plans. Now, you can still build in a description for those elements. Absolutely. Okay. GIS maps, geological maps. Okay. Once again, you can build in some descriptions, but that content itself may not be easily made accessible, fully accessible across the board. Okay. So there are going to be exceptions as they come along. My suggestion is don't jump to the exceptions first. Okay. Build accessibility into the web page, and then as much as functionally possible, build it into the PDF document. As I said, there's easy ways and hard ways. I always prefer the easy ways. A couple of resources that I like to point out. We've got a number of training manuals on our site. One of them kind of walks through the process. Here's a PDF. Here's how you do it. There's a whole section on forms. Forms are a whole other beast. I'll touch on those in 1 second. I always like to mention WebAIM. WebAIM does web accessibility at a national level. And they have a number of resources that are available on their site that are free. So I highly encourage people to take a look at that. One of the tools that I've been made aware of lately, I've been giving examples how to do a lot of this work in Adobe Acrobat itself. But there's a new tool that's come along. And it's actually been around for about 2 years now. It's called the Common Look plugin for Adobe Acrobat. And this is kind of a heavy-duty tool where it allows you to go in and really manipulate the organizational structure of the PDF itself. Okay, and my suggestion is for a tool such as this is where you're really getting into enterprise level. Okay, doing a lot of document processing. It really simplifies the process of making PDF documents specifically much more functional and much more accessible, and kind of simplifies the UI. So if you don't want to look at Acrobat and Acrobat's not doing it, then this is probably another tool to take a look at. There's a tool that's coming down the road. It's in beta right now on their site that's going to be built into Microsoft Word and called the PDF Accessibility Wizard. So you can kind of create your content in your Office documents, and it kind of will guide you through the process before it transforms into PDF. That's another tool they've got coming in beta. So NetCentric is really kind of doing a lot of work in the PDF accessibility area. For those that are really getting interested in specifications, as a cure for insomnia, perhaps. But if you're really interested in accessibility specifications for PDF, there's one that's become available. And this is a specification that's being worked on. It's going to kind of, I don't want to say last call, but kind of hitting to the end of the road in terms of contributions. So if there's anything that you want to go and take a look at and see what are the specifications that are going to be utilized to identify what an accessible PDF is, that might be something to take a look at. And lastly, whether you love them or hate them, there's an article that was posted recently by the WCAG Samurai. And Joe Clark was a gentleman that's been very involved with providing some feedback on WCAG information. I hear some chuckles, so. I think his information on the PDF, though, is spot on. And I looked at this information. He basically goes through and talks about PDF versus web pages and where you run into exceptions. Okay, what are your considerations for why PDF could be delivered in an inaccessible format? Okay, so something to take a look at. Now, forms specifically, there's a lot you can do with PDF forms. And the application that's out there right now, once again, for you Mac users out there, I do apologize, If you get Adobe Acrobat Pro for the Windows platform, there's an application called Live Cycle Designer that gets installed automatically. If you're looking at doing PDF forms, I highly encourage people to look at Live Cycle Designer. It allows you to build in accessibility into your PDF forms, and it's really super easy. Okay, I mean, you can try and do it in Acrobat Pro itself, but Live Cycle Designer, in my opinion, is the way to go, because it gives you that mix of a layout and design program that also builds in kind of the programmatic accessibility information. You can specify headings. You can specify text descriptions for form fields, things of that nature. Okay, definitely the way to go. So that's kind of what I was going to talk about today. We've had a couple questions. Any thoughts or comments that people are running into when it comes to PDF documents for the web? Don't be shy. Question, yes. Absolutely. Love it or hate it, but yeah, it's there. Making it accessible. Well, here's the good news. So I'm going to actually flip back into my PowerPoint, my raw PowerPoint slide. Now, as I mentioned before, if you've got Adobe Acrobat installed on your computer, it integrates into the Office environment. Okay, and here I'm running 2003, but I've also got this with 2007. And you'll notice that Adobe PDF comes up as an extra option to the right of the Help menu. Okay, and the choice is Convert to Adobe PDF. Okay, this is how you would then generate a tagged PDF document. If you're using the slide templates in Adobe Acrobat, if you're using the slide templates in PowerPoint, okay, and by that, let's go ahead and just do one of these. So over on the right-hand side of the screen now, I've got all my slide layouts. If we start with these, then the content you put into these elements will be tagged correctly. Okay. Now, it doesn't do a great job in terms of doing semantic markup, for instance. But what are the headings and things of that nature? It does recognize resources. That goes at the top of the list. So reading order is controlled. Any hyperlinks that are active hyperlinks in PowerPoint, those will be functional in the PDF version. So in fact, let's just do this. I can talk about this. Of course, watch, it's going to blow up in my face, but shh, we'll just edit that part out of the video. So it's running through the slides. It's recognizing all this information. It's going to dump it into a PDF. In PowerPoint, I can add my text descriptions. I can do all that content. Okay? And when it gets transformed into the PDF, all of that content information is retained. What you need to watch out for with PowerPoint are text boxes that you create. Okay? So if you're going to be creating text boxes, so here's my PowerPoint that I turned into a PDF. Okay? It looks the same. And let's go ahead and open up. I have now a tags system. Each slide of my PowerPoint is a page in my PDF, which I really kind of like because it kind of retains that slide-to-slide, page-to-page type of organizational structure. The information's all functional, okay, and accessible. So if I chose to export this out right now as a text accessible to get an idea what's the reading order going to be, there we go. Pretty much the same information that I had on my slides, and that's going to be the basic reading order. Okay. And you'll notice that there's a couple of dots between each items. Those are just simply identify what the bullets happen to be. So workflow becomes a big issue. If you can include a lot of the accessibility, quote-unquote, information into the PowerPoint, when you transform it into PDF, it works great. You are going to lose out on the slide animations and images of that nature. This is one of the solutions I do propose to people who do a lot of work in PowerPoint. If they can build the accessibility information to PowerPoint, one of the options I give them is, deliver it as a PDF. Okay. You can also, there's other export tools that will take a PowerPoint to go to HTML. Most popular one out there that we've run into is LecShare. LECSHARE. So it'll convert a PowerPoint into an accessible web page version. This is the other fallback that I suggest. Other thoughts? Yes, question.
Handle, complex things like spreadsheets, budgets,
Oh yeah, those are fun.
tables, financial information, I mean, that's all
Yep.
stuff that staff have to deal with, and how do you make Excel spreadsheets accessible?
So spreadsheets, so how do we handle spreadsheets and budget spreadsheets, financial information such as that? Okay. If you're working in Excel, and I've kind of got a very small soapbox, so I'm going to say that first. Excel is a spreadsheet program, perfectly functional spreadsheet program. Please do not use it as a layout and design program. I know people do that. It's not one of those. So if you're using it as a spreadsheet application, we're good, okay? And unfortunately, I don't have a quick example I can show you right now. But if you try and save out from Excel as PDF, okay, it will basically break the information down into the cells that are on the page, okay? I really don't have an example. I'm trying to think. I don't even have a long example I can give you. I have kind of two opinions of this right now. If it's a document that people are expected to interact with, okay, and it's a spreadsheet, I don't have a problem with posting a spreadsheet on the web page, okay? A lot of the assistive computer technologies out there do interact with Excel in function. Lock Excel down, that's fine. You can still interact with it, okay? If it's something that you don't want anybody to touch and go to PDF for a variety of reasons, you can certainly develop all the content in Excel. When you do go to PDF, you may have to go in and touch it up slightly. And specifically, I can talk generically about what tables look like. So I can tell you what tables would look like. These are some real basic tables. And in Excel, it's going to come out the same way. It's going to see that spreadsheet as just one giant table of information. In Acrobat, or something like the net-centric tool, you'd have to go back in and kind of mark and classify what your column headers were and your row headers happen to be. Okay? So that's a little bit more involved, because then you're taking a look at, first add the tags, and then, just to give you a heads up, got my touch-up reading order tool turned on. So taking a look at this first table, I just clicked on the table information, and I'm going to click on Table Inspector. Okay. You'll notice that the column headers and the row headers are a different shade of red than the rest of the table itself. And this is exactly what it would look like in Excel. Okay. You may need to do some additional markup, though, I'm selecting this first row and setting these as a scope of column. Okay, so I need to programmatically specify that in Adobe Acrobat, which is why I generally tell people, if you're presenting a lot of spreadsheet information, if it's not going to go if you can't organize it as a table necessarily in an HTML environment, the Excel spreadsheet itself is probably not a bad idea. Okay, assistive technologies do work with those. When you get into the PDF, you're going to have to go through and do a little extra work. Okay. Question, yes?
It sounded like you were suggesting Adobe InDesign CS3 as a better alternative than authoring in Word on a Macintosh, because it does the structure, and when you do the export, you're going to get this higher level of functionality than you would with Word. Is that?
The difference between the two, Word, I think, is a perfectly acceptable word processing program. You can build some basic semantic information and some basic document accessibility into it. Where it really falls apart is when you start to do page layout and design and try and use word tables to organize your information. Where I think InDesign really has the advantage is that it allows you to lay out and design the way the content should look. Where do you want to place images? You could use, in InDesign you're using zones or frames or whatever you want to call them, to give it a certain kind of presentational aspect. And if I wanted to use InDesign, for instance, to do multiple columns, that sort of markup, then from a layout and design perspective, I think InDesign's got it. From just a basic content perspective, I'm working on course outline, maybe a report, getting some stuff ready for publication, that sort of thing. I think Word is fine for that.
But I
Now,
thought you said on the Mac.
now on the
you don't
hold on a
use
sec.
structure.
Right now on the Mac side of the house,
Yeah.
you're going to be able to work in InDesign to generate tagged documents natively. In Word, you're not going to be able to do that right now.
Okay, so even
Yeah.
if you're doing a simple paragraph type
And-
document and you have access to both tools on a Mac, you're better off.
I'd say from generating a tag PDF, yeah, you're better off using InDesign. Now, this is where I always kind of put the asterisks in my presentation, because I also realize that there is an element of this is what's right versus this is what people are going to be able to do. InDesign is not a lightweight program. Most of the people that I've spoken with that have learned InDesign and taught it to themselves, they really know what they're doing and they get layout and design programs. One of the reasons I think Microsoft Word's so popular is because it's pretty easy. You can sit down, you can start typing, and right or wrong, you can create your content without really any training in Microsoft Word. If your content is couple paragraphs, single column content in Microsoft Word on the Mac, you add a couple headings in there, okay? My suggestion is save it as the PDF and then use Acrobat and run the add tags to document function. Okay. We've played with, several dozen documents that way. Haven't had a problem. Where it becomes challenging is when people start using tables for layout purposes in Microsoft Word or start designing and using text boxes in Word on the Mac. When they start doing that, then I say, go to InDesign and stay over there. Now, does that answer?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to give people some options in workflow because some people come in and say, there's absolutely no way I'm going to learn InDesign on the Mac. Just forget it. Not going to happen. Additionally, they may not have some of the options, such as math and science. There's an application called MathType that integrates into Microsoft Word. People use that to create their math content. And you can create web pages. Not that I encourage people to create web pages from Word, but, but you can create your web pages fully accessible from your Word document with this math in it. Works great with assistive technology. Okay? And you can create the PDF version. Okay? Now, the PDF version for math content right now, it's not going to be accessible. So in that case, it's like, okay, well, that's a workflow that you could live with. It's one of those questions that's really easy. That's a real short question, but the answer starts to go on and on and on, depending on the circumstances. Anybody else have a long question with a short answer, maybe? Yes?
Another InDesign question. Do you
Sure.
Is there the same concern about not changing the names of the styles? Because I think remember the styles have different names.
What you can do, so I'll be honest, what I did, and maybe I cheated a little bit. This took me a while. So what I've got up for right now is I opened up the tags panel. And when I did my InDesign document, I actually identified my styles as H1, H2, H3, so on and so forth. Okay. And that was my way of I understood it. Now, other people like to have different style names. You can remap those, though, before you're done. So you can remap main page title to H1 or heading 1. H1, heading 1, those will work with the assistive technologies right now. I generally prefer more of the HTML side of things, but just H1, H2, H3. And part of that is because that's what's coming down in the PDF specification for accessibility. And that is what Adobe Acrobat internally recognizes as a heading level. Okay. So you can kind of do it either way with InDesign. It gives you that flexibility. Just for my own sanity, I left it as H1, H2, H3 because I didn't want to go back and remap it, but you certainly could do that. Question right here in the front?
This is probably not my absence of knowledge about all the new PDF stuff, but I've noticed like here on the Acrobat PDF Maker, it has things like create PDF slant A, and I think there's a PDF slant T in the
Yes.
Acrobat. What are these and how does that affect accessibility?
So the question is, there's a lot of new PDF specifications that are coming up. PDF/A, for instance, one of them. In fact, the one for accessibility is going to be PDF/UA for universal access or universal accessibility. These are just different PDF formats. The AVE, I believe, is for archive. So they have kind of a different structure behind them such that they conform to that PDF specification. So the content is going to look correct, just going to conform to a slightly different specification in terms of compatibility. This is my understanding of how it's explained to me. In terms of accessibility, it's not going to have a document that's PDF/A is going to be different than something that's PDF/UA for universal accessibility. For the most part right now, I found that building in the accessibility information in the Word environment and saving it out as a PDF and PDF/A, I haven't noticed any real differences. I think the differences right now are behind the scenes. As to what that's going to happen down the road, that's a good question. I don't know. What the assistive computer technologies and access perspectives working on right now is they're focusing their efforts on the PDF/UA. And my suggestion right now is that if access is the concern, then the content, when it becomes available, will be PDF/UA would be the file type to save it to.
Do we have any timeline for the development of the UA?
It's in development right now. They're trying to get it built into the ISO 32000 review. So they're trying to get it adopted now so that when would it actually become a standard or specification? I have no idea. We're talking many months. Probably looking at, I want to say conservatively, you're probably looking at least 18 plus months or so. That's my understanding. That's just to get the specification, and then having the tools and the conforming readers and authoring applications all built to support that is a whole other issue. Question up in the back? Yes.
When you have I see that on your PDF there you have headers and footers. So how do you?
Yes.
Since PDFs are read, unlike web pages, they're
Oh, yeah.
page by page chunks. How do you mark it up so that the headers and footers don't interfere with the?
Yeah. So dealing with headers and footers. Now, so just to repeat the question, how would we mark up headers and footers in such a way that they don't interfere with what's communicating the information on the page? The short answer is this. If you're dealing in the Microsoft Office environment, okay, and you do either headers or footers in there, it ignores them. Okay, completely drops them out, which is something to be cautious of. If the header or footer is really informative to what's going on that page, maybe you're citing a reference or something, and somebody put it in the footer aspect of the Word document page, convert it to PDF. That's going to get missed. Okay, so you'd have to go back in an Acrobat and rezone it, as we were kind of talking about earlier, and add it and say, yeah, this is content on the page that needs to be aware of. Generally speaking, working in something like InDesign or some other layout design program, it's going to ignore the header and footer information. It's going to recognize it for the first page, but not for the subsequent pages. And in the example that I've got above, I've got my presentation. In fact, let me go ahead and just zoom in so people can see what's going on in the. Okay, there's my actual header information, or my header, accessible PDF documents with Adobe Acrobat 8. What I've done is I've dropped that out completely because it's repeating the title of the document itself. And so I went in and actually used the background tool. So using the touch-up reading order tool, I zoned it. Oops. Do that again. I zoned it and marked it as background. Okay, so that's why there's no actual gray box around it. It's out of the reading order completely. Okay.
And that happens automatically if you take,
That happens automatically from Word to PDF. Okay. In InDesign, it's going to recognize it for the first time it occurs. It's going to recognize it. Subsequent iterations, it's not going to recognize it. Okay.
you add text document.
But since I zoned it and I hit text, now you've noticed the gray region is expanded to now include that element. And so now it would repeat at the top of each page. The only time that, there we go, got it out now. The only time that I suggest leaving footer information in the document structure is when the page numbers of the document do not match the page numbers of the PDF file. So you've got content before, content after. Okay. That's when I would suggest having the page numbers in there. And really, to be perfectly honest, what I'd probably do is renumber the pages in such a way that they did map more accurately. So rather than, when I say, if it's the first page in the document as opposed to the 23rd page in the file itself. Okay, sometimes you have that difference in numbering. My suggestion, though, for things like this header, like accessible PDF documents, it's the title of the page, I drop it out completely. Question? That was up in the back.
Well, I was just asking, if you have to change it to background, you just do that once, or?
No, you have to do it on every page. So that's actually a really good point. I don't know if I mentioned this or I didn't emphasize it enough. The structure information that we're looking at right now on this page, okay, when I work on the document itself and bring up my touch-up reading order, if I was going to do any content changing on this page, let's say I go ahead and hit background or clear page structure, it only affects the content on this specific page, not through the rest of the document. Okay, so when you work in the PDF, you're working page by page by page by page. That can get tedious. Really addresses a workflow issue. I think if there's the 3 rules to learn out of all of this, it's workflow, workflow, and workflow. If you're able to build in the information early in the workflow process, there's very little you have to do later on. Yes, question?
You mentioned that, one other form of footer might be like a footnote or a citation.
Right.
How are you handling those, like, in terms of ordering the copy? So it's, you have a superscript.
Okay, yep. So how do you handle footnotes or citations information on the page itself? Good question. In terms of the document reading order, okay? This is going to have to be, in some respects, it's a little bit of a style issue. I mean, I can tell you how we've addressed this and kind of implemented it in our system. One, you need to go through and zone that content and mark it as text, okay? Second thing you can do, in the reading order, if it's marked by an asterisk 2 or 3 or information, we simply leave it at the bottom of the page in terms of the reading order, okay? So as opposed to changing the text flow itself in terms of the information communication. So we don't jump in and jump out. That's actually one of the things that's really challenging is ideally it'd be nice to have kind of like a citation or a cite reference where, the things you can do with technology. And this is one of the options that's going to be coming, or that's kind of in the works, I should say, for other file types, other file formats, where if something's identified as a citation or a sidebar, you can choose whether or not you want to immediately deviate and listen to that now or come back to it later. Okay. As we have it right now, my suggestion that we've been giving is put it in at the bottom of the page before they move on to the next page. Not a great technical solution. I mean, ideally, it'd be one of those things where the student could have the choice, or the individual could have the choice, yeah, I want to listen to this now, or I'm going to listen to it later. Right now, we don't have that flexibility built in.
So that's a case where really, no matter what your source authoring tool is, you're gonna have to do some
Yep.
tweaking in the PDF
Yep.
creation.
You're going to have to do some tweaking in the PDF. Yep. And so as the documents become far more complex, You can actually do quite a few things within InDesign, but you do get to a point where you are going to have to go back and address it within Adobe Acrobat. How much? That's the big question mark, depending on what the workflow has been to get you to that point. Which is why I always kind of hammer on, okay, how is the document process being done? I do not advocate gatekeeper models where a person becomes responsible for fixing everybody else's content. Rather, I think that if everybody can contribute a little bit along the pipeline, by the time it gets down towards the end, what you actually have is a document that's fairly easy to work with. Somebody can minimally go in and make any necessary changes. But the models that some people have proposed in our system have been, oh no, I'm just going to turn everything over to a person and they're going to make everything accessible in that document. That might work for a handful of people and personnel, but the minute that it starts to increase, that person's just not scalable. Not until cloning takes off. Probably not anytime soon.
Both Acrobat and InDesign are extensible with plugin architecture.
Yes.
Is there, for people who have, say, specialized needs like lots of citations, and are there plugins you can buy that will do smarter conversion and tagging, or is it pretty much at this point in the game a lot of that stuff is manual?
So just to repeat the question, being able to, are there any plugins or any types of additional tools that can be built in or added into the Acrobat or InDesign architecture for citations and other referencing for automatically organizing that? Not that I'm aware of. I know that there's those tools for like the Word environment and kind of specialized applications in that for research types of purposes. But not in the Acrobat, not for the tagging process, no. That would be kind of cool though. Make things a little bit easier. Other questions? Yes?
I think one of the biggest challenges we have on all our campuses is something like the campus telephone directory.
Mm-hmm.
It has database elements, it has indentations, it has different formats.
Mm-hmm.
For example, individual listings are different from departmental listings. On a number of sites, we've been able to integrate this stuff into databases, and I noticed you haven't talked too much about integrating database
No.
information here.
Actually, I'll see your telephone directory and raise you a class schedule. I think the class schedules is another issue. Room schedules, registering for classes, that sort of thing. This is a problem across the board. You've got content coming from one area. It's running through something like, in most of the cases I've seen in our system, they're using something like InDesign to do the layout, and they're pulling all the content from a separate database application. My suggestion there is that to build that layout and design in such a way that it's as functional as possible. And I realize that there's going to be situations where, and I've been working with a couple people who are really committed to trying to develop the PDF versions of their room schedules and directories and such, that they're fully accessible as both a PDF and a web page. Right now, they've only been successful doing that on the web page side. They have not been as successful doing it on the PDF side. And this is one of those situations where I beat the drum and say, okay, get the web page version up and running. Make sure that's accessible. Make sure that's usable. Make sure there's a search function that really works, that sort of thing. Secondarily, let's get the PDF version up and build as much access into that as possible. Okay, heading architecture, specifying the table information, doing that sort of thing. But that is a problem right now. That's probably one of the biggest challenges that I've seen, at least in our campuses, particularly when it comes to room schedules, and how do we get that in a format that's then functional? And really what they've been able to do, they've been focusing on is just getting the web one done and getting the web version accessible. That kind of falls into that, yeah, there's going to be exceptions to the rule.
There's also the typesetting programs as well.
Typesetting, yes, exactly. So right now, I think the challenge, are there ways to make that accessible? Absolutely. Is it going to take a lot of time to do it? Yes. And where I've said, look, I don't tell them not to do the accessible version, but what I say is, look, get your web page up and functional. Get that done. Make sure that's accessible. They've done that. I say, okay, now see what you can do for the PDF version. Some of them don't have the tools at their disposal to make the content. They can make it only, X accessible, not fully. And that's the reality that they're working under. So I say accept your reality, but change it when possible. Other questions? We're at 1:30. Oh, okay. See me after. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to stick around. Thank you.